Hey everyone, like I mentioned on LinkedIn there, my company has a mental health day today. So I thought I'd use that day to go ahead and do another stream. Let's see. Go ahead and get everything set up here. In fact, I'll go ahead and just switch over to my main screen. Don't have a lot to say starting out, so I figure we just jump into it. I wanted to pick up where we left off last time. If anybody saw my bug bounty Recon video that was posted on YouTube and obviously streamed on here, we used my framework to do subdomain enumeration to look through all the possible, we were looking at different programs still, looking at all the possible subdomains that we can find, looking at screenshots, the technology that they use to try to figure out what application we want to dig into and try to find vulnerabilities in. And we left off with picking one that was a large vulnerability or a large web application, large attack surface. It had authentication. It was one of their main core apps. We knew they were doing a lot of development on it, so there may be some new pieces that haven't been tested. So all of those ideas, all of those points kind of led us to hone in on this one application within a program. Now I want to continue on with the next step of that, which is enumeration. So once you've completed Recon and you've gotten to the point where you want to dig into a program, you want to start finding vulnerabilities, you're going to switch from Recon to enumeration. And in enumeration, you're looking at, you've essentially isolated the top level domain, you've isolated a URL, an application that you're going to target, and now you're going to be looking at endpoints in that application. You know, what endpoints can you send a request to? What parameters do those endpoints take? What mechanisms are built into the application itself, like the authentication mechanisms? They're file uploads, you know, are they sending emails? Are they rendering some type of templating agent? So all these different things are possible attack vectors that you can say, okay, well, if it has this, I could potentially test these types of attacks. So this would be the next step in really digging into a program. So first you're going to find that one application, that one URL that you think is worth your time to do a lot of testing on. And then the next thing you're going to do is dig into that specific URL, that specific application, and now start to find places where you can send your payloads, where you can do fuzzing, where you can do logic testing, and go through the manual testing as well. So I've done testing on Starbucks before, which is why I've got it pulled up here. It's a great program. It's a relatively large program. They've got some pretty decent bounties, but there's also not a huge amount of competition. There's also a lot of, you know, fun little things that you can do in there. I've tested it for race conditions in the gift cards, right? In logic in the gift cards as well. Can we find a way to add money to it? Can we find a way to get access to another person's gift cards? There's a lot of good functionality there. There's authentication, so you're going to have everything that comes with that. You can test IDORs, access controls, obviously any injection techniques. So this is a great application to show a wide range of different possible attack vectors that can be within an application. So let's go ahead and dig into it. And just like last time with Hilton, I want to look through this a little bit and just get an idea of what's going on with the program. Still getting my coffee for this morning, so cheers. And I've looked through this a little bit. The good thing is it doesn't have any really strict testing requirements like the other one, like Hilton does. Which we were walking through before. So we don't have to worry about any custom user agents or any custom headers or anything like that. So that always just makes it a little bit easier. Not a bad idea to go ahead and do that anyway, just so that you can easily identify the request that you're sending if you do submit a bounty. But at least it's good to know that you're not going to get in trouble for not doing it. Looking through here, you know, the do's and do nots are pretty straightforward. Don't brute force denial of service. Don't create a backdoor, right? Just respect them. Don't, you know, if you find something that you think is vulnerable, if you think you're going to be able to exfiltrate customer data, stop, submit the report, reach out to their security team, something like that. Find out if you can continue testing. It's always good to be safe there. One part that I did want to point out here is this under the rewards. Another thing that I really like about this program is that they have this additional line right here that says that if you include a unique nuclei template that essentially automates the exploit that you're doing, and that's fairly simple to get those built out, they'll give you an extra $250 for them. So even if it's a simple cross-site scripting or something like that, if you can make it easier for them to validate that vulnerability through a simple nuclei template, then you can get that extra $250 bonus. And especially if you're somebody that does bug bounties, on the side as a side hustle, or something while you're first starting out and learning, $250 can be a lot of money to get from a program, from a bounty. So yeah, That's one of the reasons I dug into this. It's also got a good attack surface. We have several different instances of the application. We have we're not going to look at it today, but we have a mobile application. So we can, usually mobile applications will, what a mobile app really is it's just sending API calls to a backend there. So a lot of times you can have hidden APIs that you can do injection testing on and everything through there. So, and then the other thing I like about this Starbucks program is that any other assets are still in scope, you're just not going to make money off it. So you don't have to be too concerned about if you're moving off into subdomains or kind of getting too far in the weeds. As long as you can find something they own and prove that they own it, they will give you a reward for it. They will give you they will accept it. You're just not going to get a reward for it. You're just not going to get money from it. So, yeah. So let's go ahead and move over here to the application itself. And then I've got Burp Suite pulled up as well. We're going to go ahead and start running all of our requests through Burp. And we're going to go ahead and just get the lay of the land here. So the first thing that you want to do when you're coming into an application is just kind of click around, click everything that you see, and make sure that while you're doing that, you're running everything through Burp Suite here, right? So you can see I've got everything running through Foxy Proxy. If someone wants to see how to get that set up, by the way, let me know. Super easy though. It's just a Firefox extension that routes all of our requests through the Burp Proxy here. I'm guessing most people know that, but just in case somebody doesn't, we'll do that. And yeah, why not? You can know my location. I don't mind. So you can see here, we're clicking through, it's starting to load different pages. And while that's happening, the sitemap is going to be populated in Burp Suite over here on the right-hand side. So what I'm doing is just trying to get an idea of what this looks like, right? I'm looking at what are the, here we've got a lot of different APIs from third-party services. What are the ones that are coming up there? They've got an integration to Facebook. What are the subdomains that are coming up? I'm not seeing a lot of subdomains here, right? We're only seeing the Starbucks one, which we'll dig into more in a second. But that tells me that this may be a very large application that we could find a lot of, or at least may have a lot of endpoints on the back end. So that's always good when we're looking for enumeration. Clicking through this, that appears to be just JavaScript. This does look like a combination of a user management portal as well as their marketing page. I always look at whether or not the company has the marketing page separate. Like, do they have a .com and a .app? Do they have a .com and a .io? Something like that. Typically, you're going to want to focus on the app. The marketing page is going to be much, much lower impact. It's typically just a WordPress site or something like that shows information. But this is a combination of two. That's another reason that I think this is good to dig into. So we'll keep clicking around here. And I want to have Burp do some of the work for me as well. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set my scope. Sure, everybody's seen me do this several times. So we're setting advanced scope, and we're going to come in and just do a regex to say simple string regex for Starbucks, right? So any domain that has the word Starbucks in it is going to be added to our sitemap, it's going to be added to our proxy, and we'll be able to look at that there. But we're going to filter out everything else that comes through. And you can see, like I said, we're everything collapsed real quick. So I'm betting once we hit this arrow, yes, we're going to see a lot of endpoints here. So this is another reason I thought this would be a great application to show enumeration, because you have a lot of app to enumerate. And when you have big apps like this, you want to look for, what are the hidden endpoints that they didn't think you would find? What are the old endpoints that are not in use anymore? If we can find old mechanisms that maybe they haven't actually gotten rid of an API endpoint, maybe we can access older functionality that hasn't been protected. What if, all those things like that. Anytime we have a big application like this, we have a big organization like Starbucks, they're going to be doing a ton of development. They're going to be moving very, very quickly. So we're always looking at the new pieces of the application because those are the ones that probably haven't been tested yet. But we also look at the old pieces of the application because those can have they can be susceptible to new vulnerabilities just because they're not being maintained. So I'm looking for both of those as I'm starting to dig into this. But let's have Burp do a little bit of the work for us here. First, I just want to get an idea of the unauthenticated attack surface. We're gonna create a couple accounts. We are going to test for IDORs and access controls here in a little bit. But first, I just want to know, what can an unauthenticated attacker do? Because any vulnerability that is in an unauthenticated route in a web application is always going to have a higher impact to the organization because it has a greater attack surface. You don't have to have an account. Now with Starbucks here, where anybody can just come, you hit join now, and I'm sure it's just oh wow, we get access to a lot of different other subdomains and .California. All of these gray URLs here are coming from the DOM on this. They haven't actually had a request sent to them, but Burp Suite is picking those up. So I'm guessing the reason for that is that this portal here is used for all these other pages. Weird to see, select the secure payment form and everything else, but that's just a guess. I really don't have a clue, but that's where my mind is going with it. Anyway, back to the unauthenticated routes. Is since you can just come in and create an account, doesn't look like there's nothing made. You can probably create as many as you want. So not as applicable for an application like this. If you have a .app, you have a .io, if you have any type of an application that you're doing testing on where somebody would have to purchase it to be able to get an account, that's really where the unauthenticated routes have much more impact. But we're still going to go through that kind of process here as we're looking at it. So let's go back. We'll just hit on the main page. And then I want to do an unauthenticated crawl here. So I'm going to right click on starbucks.com. We're going to hit scan. That's going to open our scan launcher. We'll just do a simple crawl. I'm going to come to my scan configuration, and we'll just do faster, right? We don't, oh, hey, thank you so much for following, Joe. Appreciate that. I love that video tech. I'm going to say that every time I see it. Okay, so we're going to do the crawl strategy here. We're going to do faster as opposed to the other ones. The reason for that is I'm going to go back in and do a complete scan or complete crawl with authentication here in a minute. But right now I'm just kind of trying to figure out what the, just get an idea very quickly of what's going on here. We'll leave the authentication login blank. And then I always like to do this, even though we're going pretty quick, I don't want to hammer any of the servers that we're testing on with this, 10 concurrent. Granted, Starbucks, I'm sure they're going to be just fine. But what I want to do instead, I want to do my low and slow. This is the one that I do almost every time. We're just going to dial it back a little bit, right? So we're going to let 2 concurrent requests, and we're just going to give it 35 milliseconds with random intervals, do a little bit of automatic throttling. So we'll do it on a 503 as well. So just in case, we start to overload anything, we want to be nice to the companies that are allowing us to test on their servers and their software. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. We can come into our dashboard and we'll see that's created just a basic scan here. It's going to go up to 2.5 hours long. I don't know how long this is going to take because there's probably a lot of unauthenticated routes. We will wait and see. But I just want to have this running in the background. This is not, I'm never going to be relying on my active scan. I'm never going to be relying on any type of scanning or automated testing to find my bugs. They are tools to help me zero into the right areas. I may get lucky every once in a while, but that's really about it, to be honest. And what we'll see is that this should start to populate a little bit as it crawls. And we've got our sitemap here. Is this a real sitemap? Yes, it is. Okay. All for just the menu, though. I think this is only a sitemap showing the menu endpoints. Could be wrong. Also a very big, very complex content security policy in the application as well. By the way, this is the other thing I'm looking at. Oh, hey, thank you so much. Yeah, this is the second stream I've done. I've got another one that I'm going to do on November 1st, which I think is 2 Wednesdays from now. But that'll correspond with the release of the alpha version of my framework. We're going to dig into how I use the framework, the full methodology and everything. So, but yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Content security policy. As I'm going through this, I'm not just filling out the sitemap. From Tunisia. That is awesome. Gosh, what time is it there? Thank you so much. It's so cool to get the opportunity to connect with people who are interested in bug bounties and everything all over the world. What time is it? Geography is not my subject. I'll be honest with you. I've got a very narrow focus of specialty, and I'm not great anywhere else. 17:30. Okay, so that's not too bad. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for hanging out, Rude. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's about 11:30 in the morning here in the States, and I think most people are working, but fortunately I have the day off today, so I'm using it to do this. Okay, don't want to get or don't want to forget what I'm saying with the application here. In addition to populating the sitemap and finding everything, I also want to get an idea of the compensating controls that are in the application, and I'm looking for mistakes, or mistakes is probably not the wrong word. I call them pointers or signs, but it's really it's just things that I've seen in an application, configurations, code patterns, anything that I've seen in an application that just over years and years of doing these bug bounties, I start to see patterns of, well, if they're not doing this right, there's a good chance maybe that'll lead to that, or et cetera. So if they're don't have these compensating controls, then obviously, you can possibly get more impactful things like cross-site scripting. That's what I'm specifically thinking about with this content security policy. So, but anyway, so looking at the content security policy, and for anybody that doesn't know, the content security policy controls all types of things like what scripts can execute, where images can be loaded. They are controls within the browser. They tell the browser essentially where it's allowed to load data, where it's allowed to execute certain things. So it's very strict rules and guidelines that you can give the browser to make sure that attackers, if they do get an exploit like a cross-site scripting, they can't load a malicious script because you don't have the unsafe inline content security policy or something like that. So anyway, so looking at this is a very large, very complex content security policy that tells me that the application is integrated with a ton of different third-party tools. I mean, you can see they are tracking just about everything here, I'm sure. I'm sure if we went and looked at the DOM, we would see a ton of script tags that are just loading all these in. We have unsafe inline, unsafe eval, right, coming from star.starbucks.com, star.starbucks.ca. So there's a lot of flexibility in this content security policy. I'm seeing the words unsafe inval for script source here coming from a few different places. So this makes me want to look for things like a cross-site scripting. This makes me want to look for injection techniques, especially client-side injection techniques, because if I can get that, let's say I can get a cross-site scripting or even an HTML injection that would allow me to just inject a script tag, I can potentially use one of these third-party services as a delivery mechanism for an external script. And that external script is going to allow me to load much more complex JavaScript. So that's how you can get those session writing attacks where you get a cross-site scripting plus a CSRF, and you can get account takeover, or you can start enumerating endpoints that are in the back end there. So whenever I see a content security policy like this, I immediately start thinking client-side injections. So that's very good to note there. And yeah, also this is not a full sitemap because we just have the menu there. Wow. Yeah, so this is a very big app. This is a really good one to do enumeration on. I would definitely recommend if you want to learn more about enumeration to test this. But we're already hitting a ton of endpoints. That's going to go for a while. So we'll let that crawler keep doing the work. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and get set up for an account. I know I want to get logged in here in a bit. And I always want to make 2 accounts, right? Because we want to be able to test IDORs. Indirect object references mean that we're able to access an object we're not supposed to be able to access. So I make account 1. If I can access a private object from the database from account 2 that I've created, that's an indirect object reference. So always want to have the capability to test that. For the email account, right, this is a HackerOne program, so we're going to use our HackerOne alias, which I actually brought this up right now. For anybody that doesn't know, hopefully you do if you're testing on HackerOne, but they have this great, essentially a forwarding service through emails where when you sign up for an account, you can just put your username in here and then the @WeAreHackerOne, and it will forward that email to whatever account you've used to set up the bug bounty program here. So if I come back over and I've set up a new account, actually, this is something that I want to start. I want to have a public account that people can track. So I've set this one up and I'll be submitting some bugs from it and everything. You can see it's a newer one. It's actually been up for a while here. I just never use it. And our username is r-s0n, my arson thing there. Somebody had already taken it without a dash, which happens every once in a while, and it made me sad, but that's okay. So we're going to come back. We're going to put our username. And then we're going to do stupid clients, I think, @wearehackerone.com, right? And then the password, I'll show this here. This is, we'll see if it'll let us, but this is the password I typically use for doing these tests, and it will let me. This is typically very accessible, but it's also really, really easy. If you look, it's just going down the 2 rows on the left-hand side. So if you need an easy password that will fit most, things like this, obviously don't use it for a real account. Don't use it for a real account. I'm not doing anything with this. Feel free to come in and log in this here. Yeah. All right, we're gonna go ahead and create the account. Spinning. Okay, and that was successful. I'm noting immediately here that we do not have, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to, like typically there would be an email. If you're using an email for your username, then it's strange that you don't have to activate that. How do they know that we own this email? They've just given us an account with this. It doesn't really matter for creating accounts necessarily, but I start to think about, can I use that? Can I use kind of the quirkiness of emails and like the plus notation and everything to possibly take over another user's account? So I'm already starting to map this out in my head of the type of vulnerabilities that I might be looking for here. Okay, we have the account. We'll go ahead and get a lay of the land. Card management. This is the part that I mentioned I've tested before. You do have to actually get Starbucks cards. I think maybe you could just add one in here. I'm trying to remember. I know I bought a couple just like $5 ones last time and went and used that to test. So again, this is a great place for, let's think about all the different things that we can do in here as our scan is still running. Right, we can use race conditions and logic to try and manipulate the price of these cards to create free money. We can try and access other users' cards, right, through that indirect object reference to try and get information. Maybe we can get their card number. So that's another function we have here. Race conditions. If we send 40 requests at the exact same time to try and use the card to buy something, is there any race condition within the server that allows it to buy multiple times? Those are always Stoke is a great well-known researcher for race conditions if you want to learn more about that. But yeah, that's another thing that we can look at. So these gift card mechanisms are always very, very interesting. All right, let's come down to the rewards. So the rewards, right, you have, what do you get for the rewards? How it works. I'm always trying to see, is there value here? Yeah, there's got to be some value here. So you're earning dollars, you're earning rewards. So not as impactful, yes, thank you very much. Not as impactful as a gift card, right? But these rewards, kind of thinking the same thing. Can you manipulate the logic and the way the rewards are created? They're probably not as strict as the one with gift cards. Gift cards, Starbucks going to be dialed in to that, right? Their security team's going to be checking that all the time. But maybe you can just, get some money off your coffee. So I'm going to be trying to manipulate the logic of the application to try and do that. History, no. I mean, you can potentially, so this is going to be rendering data that's coming from the database. So you've got anything that you can do with really just stored cross-site scripting, stored, template injection, things like that. Not a ton to do there. So I'm probably not going to spend a bunch of time. Personal information. I love this. I love anywhere where we can send data directly to the database, profile things. Hey, Cloudbite, how's it going? Appreciate you hopping back in, man. Oh, man, I love it. I love we're starting to get like a little community here. This is so great. The personal page, right? This gets tested a lot, so it typically is pretty hardened. But it's also a really great place to try and test injection techniques and try to test invalid or insufficient sanitization, right? Are they allowing you to change other values on your user profile that's not listed here? We've got a very specific set of things, state, zip code, etc. But I don't see my email listed here. So can I come through this page and can I change my email? That's something that they certainly want anyone to do. And if I can do that, does that vulnerability allow me to bypass some type of restriction so I can actually change it to another user's email and I can take over that account? So we're definitely going to do some testing on there. This is a great attack vector. Payment methods, right? Adding credit cards. I'm not going to do that on here on a stream for obvious reasons. But anything to do with payments, unless it's outsourced to a third party, we got PayPal here, but I think they have their own internal service. Let's see what happens if we hit add. Yeah, this looks like their own thing. Anyway, if they have their own payment service, then they're dealing with what's called PCI data. PCI DSS is a compliance in the United States, and possibly global. I don't remember off the top of my head, but It's payment card information is what PCI stands for. And basically, if you are processing payments through a credit card or any type of a card for a customer, then you are subject to that compliance. So as researchers, that's really important for us to know so that we can show impact, right? If you're coming in here, I'm trying to think of what you could do, because a lot of PCI has to do with like segmenting off and not storing data, but any vulnerability, any bug that you can find in these types of payment mechanisms, the impact of that is going to be much greater because it can impact their PCI compliance. And you always want to make sure you mention that in the reports, you know. So yeah, definitely going to test that for injections. Privacy and data, this is probably not going to be much of anything. It would be interested to see if we can change this for other users, right? That's obviously going to have a lot of impact. If you've come in and say, no, I don't want you sharing my personal information, but then I can change another user so their personal information is shared without their knowledge, that would have a lot of impact to the company. The company would definitely want to get that fixed. And settings as well. And now here we have, right, this is where probably the bulk of testing for authentication bypass is going to go. We have two-factor. This is great. I don't know if I'll have time to test this today. If not, we'll have to do a follow-up on it. But, you know, if they have two-factor, always turn it on and then try and log into your account without it. Try to find any way to do without it. That's a great test that you can do on your own. Super, I don't know, not too complicated. I like the logic testing, creative testing. You get to kind of bend that mechanism and see if it'll break. But this is going to be a really great attack vector here. And then the sign out function as well, right? You have session fixation vulnerabilities. When you sign out, does it actually invalidate your session? It's a very easy thing to test there. Go in, sign out, and then take your session cookie, put it back into burp, and see if it responds. Okay, so let's get out of the application and the logic a little bit and move closer into the technology. And let's look at how are they storing information here. Ton of cookies coming from this app.starbucks.com. Interesting. So when you log in, I didn't notice that originally, but it looks like you moved to this app subdomain. What happens if we click over here? Sure, you found this. So we're still in the app, but it does look very similar. I wonder if we sign out, do we go back to starbucks.com? Or actually, let's try this. What happens if we go to starbucks.com right now and we have a session? See all the history from my cross-site scripting video that I just released, I think yesterday. I don't know, all the days blend together. Anyway, but yeah, just did a cross-site scripting video if anybody's looking at that. Okay, so it redirects over to www and keeps us signed in. So if we click on this, so here's the difference. So there must be, I guess when you log in, it redirects you over to the app. And then here, if you click on this here, this should be a redirect right back to www. It is, yeah. Okay, so clicking on this button when you're logged out sends you back to www. Or no, I'm still logged in, right? Oh, this is strange. So you have very similar, these are actually completely different. Hey, Magic Set, how's it going? I hope I'm saying that right. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but hey, I appreciate you hanging out. This is interesting. I don't know, are these sharing an application? What happens if I come over here to the menu? This could be just a routing trick. And I'm going to look into the architecture, see where they are in the cloud, what they're using here in a minute. But it's entirely possible that these are two separate code bases as well, and they just try to maintain feature parity with them. And if that's the case, this could be something that would be really interesting to dig into. Sorry, I'm just going to take a sip of coffee here. I've got a voucher for Pentester Labs on Twitter. Oh gosh. Oh, no. You don't have to do that. No, take it and go use it. That's so kind of you to ask. I'm so glad you got that. How did that happen? You got that because of my bug bounty tool, my framework? That is so awesome. I'm so glad. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I'd be happy if you don't want it. I'd be happy to give it away. So my earphones, yeah, I think you can send a tweet here. I don't know much about Twitter. I'll be honest. I'm not great with all these social media things. But yeah, that's so great. I'm so glad that something I made helped. I'm more excited about that than anything else. What happened? Did you find a bug in their in their app? Let me see. Is it okay if I... Okay, I'm pulling it up here. I assume it's okay if I share this out. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. Okay, that's what it's in right here. Don't know what I'm not logged in. What can we see? I just see that the voucher is sent here. No, it won't let me scroll up. That's as far as it'll go. Sorry, like I said, I don't... Somebody was asking me about Twitter too. Okay, let me see. Oh my, are you serious? So you submitted me for this and got a gift card because of that? I cannot tell you, hold on, let me put this away for a second. I cannot tell you how much you've made my day. That is incredible. Thank you so much. That is the cool, was it the framework, my bug bounty framework? I'm so shocked right now. That's so amazing. That's so cool. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Wow. Well, okay, then that tells me I'm going in the right direction then. I'm going in the right direction. Seriously, thank you. Thank you for hopping on and sharing that with me. I cannot tell you how much you just made my day. That is so awesome. That is so awesome. It's so great to, I'll be honest, I mean, you can look at the commits and everything. I put a lot of time and work into that, and it's obviously a passion and everything, but to have it be received or anything, so that's great. Sure, yeah, do you want to, are we connected on LinkedIn? You can send it through LinkedIn there, and yeah, I mean, I'll absolutely do that, and I'm going to make sure you get credit for this and everything too. Magic. Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I got to set it up so it covers my face. That's perfect. I do have Discord. I at least have a Discord account here. Hold on, I'm going to have to get it pulled up. Sorry, it's loading up here in just 1 second. Or maybe not. That's what I got going right now. Ah, there we go. Okay. I think I can, how does this work? You can copy your thing here. Yeah, that's perfect. I think this is it, right? That's what you need to add me. I think. Tell me if I'm wrong. Again, I'm not great with this. I saw one that came in from somebody named Paulo. I don't know if that's yourself or not. But yeah, anyway, like I said, thank you so much. There you are. Magic Sec. Gotcha. All right, perfect. We're connected. Send this back. Man, that is so cool. That is so cool. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll get everything set up and let me wow, man. That's so great. I got it. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm got to type right. That's awesome. That is so cool. Well, yeah, we'll do that. We'll get a giveaway going, man. I'm gonna make sure you get tons of call outs and all the credit in the world for that. That is so awesome. Thank you so much, Magic. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for submitting that. Thank you for, thank you. I'm just so blown away. I'll make sure I can talk to them too. I've actually, I know a couple of guys over there, so I'll make sure that all gets squared away. But yeah, thank you so much, man. I did not expect that at all. I'm just so happy that people are liking the stuff that I'm put out. And Deny, let me come back here. I'm trying to create a huge checklist for web app pen testing to use on all my assessments. Do I recommend it? Yeah, so I actually, if you go to my page here, arsonsecurity.com, and you come up to the methodology, I've actually built, I think, something that would work for you. This is what I try to do. Now, this is high level. So what we're looking for each of these tests are what are we doing and why are we doing it, right? So for, let's come down to one of the ones probably makes a little more sense, right? For like client-side prototype pollution, we have a general idea of what it is, and then we have the goals of what we can try to do there. So, and I'm making corresponding videos with these as well to walk through it. So this is what I use. I go through and I'll have like this on one side and where's Starbucks here? I'll have this on the other side. you know, something like that. The other thing, and I don't have my framework running right now. Let me just kind of get that running real quick. No. So in my framework, yeah, please, yeah, hang out as much as you want, Magic, please. Hey, you're a VIP here now. Good grief, I can't tell you how much you made my day. Okay, so this is the denied. This is my framework as well, and this is really meant to be. I'm still building this out, so I apologize. The alpha version should come out soon, and a lot of this hasn't been done. I'm going to be building it through alpha to beta, but this will be a good other place to start with it. In addition to all of those, this kind of corresponds to it. So if we come back to the methodology, go back up to the top, you'll see all of the vulnerabilities here for like abusing hop headers. We go further into detail about how you're actually testing them within here. So web cache poisoning, web deception, HTTP request smuggling, things like that. I've got a lot of additional information there. So this is, you can use my information if you want. I'm always going to get a little plug there for that. Another that I recommend that's honestly most people would say is better. That's totally fine. I'm working on getting everything worked in. Hack tricks right here. This is I never do any testing without this. It's phenomenal. Let's see. You can search for anything here if you want to find something specific. You can see some of my recent ones. But if you scroll down here, also, look, you can see how awesome this is. So if you're doing network pen testing, you've got all the ports and you can come in and test like, okay, well, I found this open port here. So if you're doing in-map scans on any targets or something, you go and test that. But then for web vulnerabilities as well, they do have a general methodology here. And I did base some of my own methodology on this, but not entirely. And then they have all the individual vulnerabilities up. But it is tons of really great information for actually coming in and executing these vulnerabilities. Right, so for command injection, tons of additional payloads and things here that you can do. This is, like I said, never do any testing without having this up. So what I do when I'm testing is I come down through here and I do these one by one. And then if I need a guide to show me how to do them, so this gives me the what, this gives me the why. If I need a guide on how to do it, then I jump over to hack tricks. But I'm working on getting my own stuff in there. Oh yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, this is what I recommend. This is what everybody on my team typically does as well. This is really the book.hacktricks is phenomenal. Oh, and then cloud as well. There's a cloud as well, a new one. Let's go ahead and get that pinned up there. Same creator, same format and everything, right? But now we're looking into CI/CD security. We're looking at AWS security, Azure, all this type stuff. So this is still being built out. But yeah, everything that this guy is doing is phenomenal. I definitely recommend going connecting with him on LinkedIn, or I'm sure he has a Twitter and everything else too. Just phenomenal. And he's working on building out new trainings and I think certifications and stuff too. Don't quote me on that. But I know one of the senior engineers on my team is working on doing one of the trainings right now for the cloud here, and he said it was absolutely phenomenal. So cannot recommend hack tricks enough. Really, really great stuff. All right, awesome. So let's hop back here. I don't remember where. Oh, I know where we left off. We were going to look into the storage. We were going to see how the cookies and everything is going in there. All right. Oh, and also we recognize that .app and .dub may be different code bases, maybe different applications. Either that or they're doing some funky routing. Either way, that's a pointer. That's one of those pointers, right? It's just a little weird. Why are they doing that? What was the need? A lot of times when you see things like that, when you see something that doesn't make a lot of sense, there was some type of internal constraint that made it so that they had to solve a challenging problem with something that I don't want to say is hacky, but it was, right, they had to kind of make something work that was outside of best practices and stuff. So that's where when you see those pointers, that's where you can start to bend the logic. That's where you can try and break it. Okay, let's come down here and look at what's stored in the cookies. I'm looking for session tokens. I'm looking for what has HTTP only. Do any session tokens not have the HTTP only flag? I am ignoring for now any of the cookies that have this underscore before because there's a naming convention for tracking cookies. And we see there's already a ton of tracking cookies in here. don't see any session tokens in here. Well, there's a session token over here, but I don't see it identified with that. Is that right? TA session. This must be some other, well, it goes to the domain. Interesting. Ah, there's our session token. Or at least, no, there's one that's listed as session token, but it's not. Yeah, so again, the cookies here are not what I would expect. We don't have a really clear session token. So that again is telling me maybe I can manipulate that logic. Maybe there's something funky, or maybe they're just using a third-party service and I haven't recognized that. And I'm going to go in through here and see that, you know, Keybase, I think is the name of Keybase, is a really good example where a lot of times I can't figure out what the session is doing and then it's kind of stored somewhere else or doing something. Nothing else for those two. Oh, we got, interesting. We got signed out and I don't know why, but we can do. Keep me signed in. Oh, right. I forgot we did the We Are HackerOne. That's my actual email there. It's pumpkin time. All right, we'll log back in. Let's go in and make sure. Did that just time out? Did I delete something on accident? Still only have that one. Still only claims that one's a session token. Okay, anything in cache here? Nothing. Index database, 1. Database key val store, default, okay. Oh, we do have a little bit of data in here. Yeah, geolocation data. Okay. All right. So we've got some data being stored in the index database. Anything stored anywhere in here can potentially be an attack vector. That's the reason that I'm looking through this. I'm also looking at any insecure session handling here. Local storage. I love looking into local storage, and they've got a bunch of information in it. A lot of times local storage, for anybody who doesn't know, local storage it's literally local storage on the machine that you're working on. Local storage is a terrible place to store any sensitive information, because if that machine gets any malware on it, it's going to grab all that information. So seeing sensitive information, personal information put in local store is always a good pointer that there could be some other best practices that they're not following. A lot of times you see that more in JavaScript-based applications, right? Node backend, very single-page applications that are client-side heavy. And the reason for that is for performance. If you have a application where the calls are coming from the client side, it can start to run very, very slowly if you're having to make a ton of calls to validate everything. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll load up a bunch of data in local storage, sometimes even sensitive data, object IDs, things like that. Not a vulnerability in and of itself, but again, this is telling us that there could be attack vectors, there could be something that we can test in here. Now, if you do see a password in here, that I would submit. Some programs accept it, some programs don't. I usually give it a 50-50 shot. I submit it as insecure storage or something like that. But that's something to definitely look for. We don't see that. We don't see anything too terrible. It does look like there's some trusted.cookie. So I would be interested to play with this and see if it has any impact on, maybe there's some role-based access control logic or authentication logic that's built into this. This one right here starts with EY, which tells me that when we decode this from base 64, it's going to have a JSON object, right? So if we come over here, come to the decoder, I can guarantee you that when we decode this as base 64, there you go. We're going to have an object. So we have data stored in there. So what is that? Is that my object ID? I can now change that. So if I change that, how does it affect the application? That's all stuff I'm thinking about. Anything else in local store here, just to make sure. Local store is usually the one that I pay the most attention to. Session storage is always interesting, but it's rare to see anything too valuable in there. Okay, so I feel good about that. Let's go back over and take a look at Burp. See how our scan is running first. Man, we got 517 locations. And look at this, we're starting to get some findings as well. Now again, these are pointers. These are gonna point to something that could potentially be vulnerable there, but JS monitor is always interesting, so we can see very easy. It thinks it found a secret. This is obviously not showing a password, but it's showing something. Let's come in here. So we obviously have an endpoint, and it is passing this value. I don't know what that is yet, but this is maybe function names on the back end. Maybe this JSON is corresponding to, this is what, or a function on the front end maybe. Maybe it's a client-side function. This is mapping this endpoint to a specific function that executes on the client side. And so if I can get injection into this, maybe I can potentially change it. That's a long shot, but anyway. Not a lot very interesting there, right? We got the same thing here. So we're probably going to get this a lot. We're probably going to get a lot of false positives. Okay, so I'm starting to get an idea of what's going on here. Cross-domain script. Yeah, we already said the content security policy is pretty wild and it's loading stuff from all over the place. So anytime you see this cross-domain script, that is your opportunity to, if you do find a cross-site scripting, possibly you can inject an external script by using this service. Also look for subdomain takeovers. Gosh, can't think today. Look for subdomain takeovers on these because obviously it would have a much greater impact if you can also load a script from that subdomain that you're taking over there. Clickjacking, I don't care. These are all passive scans as well, right? So it's just passively parsing all the data that's coming through here, all the requests that are coming through here, and it's picking up some interesting information. We're not doing any active scan yet. So you're just getting an idea of what's there, right? It's just going to be pointing out stuff that it can get from parsing the requests. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. This is huge. This is going to take a long time in and of itself. And if that's what's going to happen, I'm going to pause that. And let's go ahead and get an authenticated scan running instead. I don't know why I stretched like this. It was like an 80s hacker movie. That I'm like, okay, let's go. But the truth is I'm just sore and old and achy. And that's why I did that. So I'm such a dork. All right, so we're going to start another scan, but we're going to set it up with an authenticated scan, like I said. So we've already got our account. We'll try and just pass it the username and password that we've just set up and see if Burp can find where it needs to log in and it can log in itself. It should be okay. The only thing that I think may cause an issue here is that redirect over to the app.starbucks as opposed to the www. I'm worried that will make it think that it's out of scope. But let's give it a shot here. So we're going to come and run another scan. We're going to do a crawl as well still. We'll just do the fastest for now. And all that is setting the amount of time that the crawl can go. It has nothing to do with the speed of the requests that are being sent through. And then I'm just going to do a simple use login credentials here. We'll do new ones. Label Twitch stream. And I said RSON at wearehackerone.com. And then we have that throwaway password we have there. And finally, we're going to make sure and still use our low and slow because we do not want to hammer their application. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit OK there, and we'll let that start. And we'll hop back and forth just to see, but typically this will tell you what's going on. It'll tell you once it starts to try and log in. This is a DAST scanner, right? A dynamic application security testing scanner. As opposed to a SAST, static application security testing tool, which parses the code itself. A DAST scanner essentially conducts an automated penetration test. But it's a very heavy penetration test. It's a very, it doesn't really test for the logic as much as it just throws a bunch of payloads and a bunch of different requests at it. And depending on the variations in the responses, it may believe that there's a vulnerability. A great example of that is for SQL injection. Most people know that SQL injection, if you do like a double quote or a backslash, you can break, and you see that the application breaks or there's an error message that comes back, that will tell you that's a SQL injection. Very easy to do that testing automated through a DAST scanner. There's other things like IDORs that are almost impossible to do automated through testing, and you should focus on the vulnerabilities that are very difficult to test using automated scanners like this for your first bugs, because those are the ones that are going to be prevalent out there. IDORs, access controls, best way to start if you're getting into bug bounties. But anyway, I digress. So this DAS scanner is going to conduct basically a stupid automated penetration test. It's basically a script kiddie, right? It's going to go in and throw all these things. So for a SQL injection, it's going to first of all identify that there's an attack vector, there's an injection point, and that's just going to be some type of a request. So for example, when we had our sign in here, oh, that's not the sign one. Someone show me a post request. See, it's such a big thing, I can't even see it. That's okay. I don't need to keep looking. Anyway, come back here. But yeah, take a request that has some type of a parameter, get parameter, post parameter, anywhere that you can do an injection. It's also going to be headers. It's also going to be cookies. It's going to be the endpoint itself, path parameters. All of these different things can be possible attack vectors. It's going to identify those attack vectors. It's going to crawl, which is what it's doing now, which is just pulling a page, the DOM of an individual endpoint, parsing that DOM, identifying any links or connections to another page, adding those to a list, moving to the next one, and then doing it again and again. That's what it's doing right now. So it would crawl first. It would identify a page that it saw it had a form or accepted some type of a parameter, and it would say, okay, that's an attack vector. So now that gets added to the next list, which is the list of attack vectors. And for each attack vector, it's going to throw a bunch of different payloads at it. So for SQL injection, it may do double quote, single quote, backslash, all these different payloads that it knows can potentially cause a break in the database, in the SQL database, that would cause unexpected behavior in the application. And if it gets variations in behavior when it sends these the malicious characters or the malform requests, as opposed to when it sends typical requests, that's going to tell the DAS scanner that there's a possibility that there's a vulnerability here. But that's why we use these as pointers, as something to just kind of guide us, and we don't rely on these to find vulnerabilities, because you're almost always going to be false positives. They're just seeing variations, right? If you send a null byte to a SQL injection, it may return with a 500 error. That doesn't mean the database broke. That means that maybe the application broke. Maybe it could be 100 different things, you know? So that's what we're doing here. We're starting with crawling. We're not actually sending any payloads, but a DAS scanner, when it starts to crawl, especially when you're doing authenticated crawling, it's going to come through here and find every page it can find unauthenticated, just like I was talking about earlier. Then it's going to attempt to locate where it can log in. It's going to provide the credentials and attempt to actually follow that login path. And then it's going to start a second stage of crawling to go in using the existing session token. So that's what we're doing now, is we're hoping to have Burp Suite do a little bit of the workforce in the back end while we're clicking and crawling around everything. Do I test for SSL and TLS vulnerabilities? Not really. They're not big on a lot of programs. I'll tell you what I do though, and I don't think I have any scans up, but I always look for any vulnerabilities in, vulnerability is a bad word, but like any misconfigurations in the SSL TLS. So out, if they're using like TLS 1.0, 1.1, which is not, not really supported anymore. If they're using SSL, that's another one. Those are all those pointers that I was talking about. Deny that all. It's not necessarily a bug in and of itself, but it tells me that they're not necessarily following best practices. It tells me that they're not giving that application as much love as maybe some of their other applications. And the best example I can give of that is the certificates. I love finding applications with expired certificates or mismatched certificates. No certificate at all. That's typically the best, because then what does that mean? For an expired certificate, that probably means that it's an older application that just isn't being maintained anymore. So maybe there are some vulnerabilities associated with like newer vulnerabilities that have come out that weren't fixed in the past. I'm going to go in and test those in that application. For a mismatched certificate, does that mean that they're in the process of actually converting this application? It's kind of in this state of limbo, right? Where maybe it has some old endpoints from the other application or things. So I'm going to test looking for that. If there's nothing at all, what I really hope is that one of the developers just had to test something real quick, or somebody in DevOps or QE or something just had to test something real quick. And so they didn't want to go through the whole thing, and they got a deadline, and their boss is breathing down their neck. Like, I just got to get this out there and test it and find out and done. I want to go on the weekend. I'm going out on the boat and I want to have fun, So they just go into their environment and just kind of quietly spin up a little server to do the test real quick. And hopefully my scanning, I can find it and I can start hitting it and get the bug that way. So Yeah, like I said, I don't test for any of those vulnerabilities. Typically, they're out of scope. I'm almost certain that if we come up here to the Starbucks program, where are we at? We'll take a look there in scope. But I use them as pointers as opposed to finding vulnerabilities itself. Is the short answer after giving the long answer. And yeah, you do see this listed in the exclusions here. Exact same answer for headers. If there are any insecure headers, I don't typically look at that as a vulnerability, but I definitely think it's not getting as much love, and we can go in and possibly poke at it a little more. All right, let's come back over here. Dash scanner is still running. It hasn't attempted to authenticate, I don't think yet, but that's okay. All right, we'll let it just keep going. We'll click around a little bit more, and then we're going to pull up our questionnaire and start answering a couple questions on it, and then we'll look for actual attack vectors. But first, let's just do this. We're really not getting a ton here. Gosh, this has a huge attack surface. Look at all these different endpoints here too. You know what I want to do? I want to find out whether or not these are live. These are all Starbucks things. I want to find out which ones are live or which one are not while that scan is running, and then we'll go back and dig back into that. So I'm going to do that with one of my tools here. Let me bring up all right, and I'm going to I've got a very lightweight version of my framework that I did for the Synac LP Plus machines, and it has this check URLs bash script that I wrote that is going to help us here. Don't need to clone the whole thing. I'll just copy that over, and let's do this. I can never type whenever I'm doing a stream or people are watching me. I don't know what it is about it when people watch you when you're typing. It's my hands just become incapable of typing when I'm trying to get them to type. Anyway, all right, so we're going to do vim, and we will do check urls.sh. Go ahead and implant this here. Really simple bash script, right? We're going to pass it an environmental variable that's just a URLs file that we're going to create here in a second. It's still going to route everything through the proxy, through burp, and we have a timeout for each one. But this is just going to loop through each one of these URLs, and it's going to send a request in several different types. So get request, post request, etc. And that does a great job of just populating the sitemap. So this is something that I do as I'm doing enumeration on the page. We're still going to stay really centralized in that starbucks.com, that main top level domain. But I'm doing this because I want to identify any mechanisms that are tied to that through the subdomains. As we start to dig into the larger logic testing, we're going to want to have cognizance of that. So let's go ahead and get that saved there. We can see it stored there. Oh, I shouldn't have put it on. Should not have put it there. Move, arson framework, check URLs. Here. And then let's make it so anybody can do this. Once again, I do not have the ability to type. Okay, that's good to go there. So, come back over here, run that again, and I'm going to collapse all of these on this side. I'm going to select each one of them here. This is going to give me a ton. We'll go copy selected URLs, and then we're going to do vim urls.txt, insert, paste that, and now we have a whole bunch of stuff there. So now, let's go ahead and do check URLs, urls.txt. We can run that, and that should begin to start populating some additional pages here. Here we can see that they're making a lot of the requests there. So we'll let that go for a bit as well. Come back over to the app, take a look at our scan. Pretty good, pretty good. All right. Oh, we've got other ones that are coming in too. So as those requests are going through from the check URLs, you're going to see additional ones that are coming through here. See as they're populating. So I typically do this several times. And one of the things that you can do is, which one was it? One of these sections here, gosh, I don't remember anymore. Maybe you can just turn all these off, and that's how I did it. Because these shouldn't have a request. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Yeah, so if you go in and filter so that you're filtering out every status code, the only thing that's going to be left is the endpoints that have been identified through passive crawling, but have not been actually requested yet. So you can continue to do this over and over again with this check URL. So I'll copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, keep doing it. Again, it's a slow process. You can see we're using a lot of our network capacity up here. We're using a lot of our local memory. So it's not a cheap thing to do. I don't continue to do it a lot until I really start to dig in, but not 400, 300. But it's a great way to very quickly start to populate your sitemap with a ton of different things. And you can see here, we went from one domain and now we're digging into, hundreds and hundreds here. So tons of different opportunities for vulnerabilities. I guarantee you there are vulnerabilities out there. If anybody, a big attack surface like this, I know when people are just getting into bug bounties, they may think, everybody's found all the vulnerabilities. They haven't. There's no way. There's no way that you can go through and look through all these. So you just gotta, it's an Easter egg hunt, right? I always say it's an Easter egg hunt. You just gotta stumble on to something that's good. And then you end up usually having a pretty big payday, because when you find one vulnerability, there can be a lot of them. So you kind of find that place and nobody's looked for the eggs yet, and you can find all of them there. All right, we'll go back to starbucks.com. Or actually, let's dig into the app. So we got the app.starbucks up here. Interesting, very different. Very, very different. These are all client-side JavaScript files, so very heavy on client-side JavaScript. We haven't really taken a look at the technology either. What do we have on the Wapalizer here? We're finding Lodash. This is the most recent version, I think, but Lodash, typically we can look for prototype pollution in there. We're running in AWS. Awesome. So we're going to have a lot of, everything that goes with that. This is probably an application that's making a request to an ALB, an application load balancer, or an ELB, an elastic load balancer that's sending it to the back. So we're going to look for things like, can we spoof the IP address with the X forwarded for header is something that can be common there. What types of misconfigurations, right? Going back to this, now that we know it's AWS, we've got all types of different additional misconfigurations that we can come in and test with that. So that's great. Where am I at? Keep getting lost. What is the additional technology here? We saw it has an integration to PayPal. They have S3, right? So we'll probably do some testing. Any S3 buckets that we can find, we'll take the AWS CLI tool and see if we can go in and access those S3 buckets, those files directly. Webpack. Okay, so are they actually properly serializing the Webpack? This is something I see surprisingly a lot, where you can come into the debugger and they actually have all of the code here. Well, this is something interesting. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is at all. I'm going to leave that alone. Does look like it's properly serialized though, although we do have some JavaScript. These are known libraries. No, we're not getting, although I don't see a framework. I don't know. Are they using React? They are using React. Okay, so it's React front end, right? Okay, so as long as they are sticking to using the React front end as opposed to doing custom JavaScript files, probably not a ton of opportunities for DOM-based cross-site scripting. But if you see custom JavaScript files, let's actually go in and see if that's something that we're finding in the sitemap here. I know that we have the app assets, but these all look like chunk files. Yeah, these are all chunk files that are built through Webpack, which means they're probably actually. So it doesn't mean we won't be able to get it, but I'm always looking for, again, like custom.js or starbucks.js, something that's built entirely separate from this, or possibly any inline scripts that we can look for as well. All right, let's see how our crawler's doing here. Got a good amount of things there. Claiming a source code disclosure. Yeah, probably not. It's probably not written in ASP. Oh, well, this is not ASP, but this is showing it that they have some templating. I think, I'm almost certain I know what that is here. Let's come back up to hack tricks. Template injection. Client-side template injection. It looks like that's what this is. What would that rendering be, though? Because React doesn't have a templating engine. That's on the client side, so it must be a server side over here. Server-side template injection for Node. I tell you what, I'm going to come back over. Oh, that's done. Great. So that's not slowing everything down. My network's definitely slowing down. Okay, where's the node one over here? It's not handlebars. Yeah, see, that looks more like a Ruby rendering. Well, no. Oh, what? Maybe. That's weird. I don't know why this is included in here. I mean, it's JavaScript, but I don't know. I wonder if anybody's watched this knows of a templating engine in JavaScript that does that. I thought there was one. I thought I've seen that. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. Anyway, that's another pointer, right? That's giving me more information on the types of exploits that I can do. What makes sense to spending my time on. Now I'm going to include server-side template injection. Anything that has this syntax here as part of the templating, I can try and throw it at it. Maybe it has different languages on the back end, and that's the reason we're seeing that. Very interesting. Okay, I want to get one thing cloned over here real quick. So let's come back to why am I doing that? I got two of them up. Let's come back to my GitHub here. And I'm going to go to my bug bounty notes. Do I have code installed in this one? I do. Okay. Let's go, I'll tell you what, let's make directory stream. I'm going to move check URLs to stream. Okay. And we're going to get VS Code coming up there. Open ourselves up a terminal. No, I don't want to take a survey right now. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and copy this down. The reason for that is I've got one of the notes in here that we can start filling out. I've already got a video. It was actually, I think the first one that really started to hit on the algorithm, like my deep dive, where I think one person mentioned it was not aptly named, so I'll try and do that better next time. But it was really just me going through my manual methodology and answering a lot of questions about the app. So I don't want to do the same thing here just because I think it'd be redundant information, but I do want to show just kind of downloading that. So get clone. Let's go ahead and get that loaded up. Let's get this out here. And so we've got our notes, we've got our signs, and we've got our methodology. And we'll move the signs over here. So again, I'm not going to go through this because it's kind of tedious, but this is what I use for my notes, right? So here with the stacks and languages, we know we've got JavaScript, we've got React, right, for the front end. Yeah, I would go through and list out all of the technologies there. We know that this is running on AWS, so maybe an ECS cluster, maybe an EC2, maybe it's all AWS Lambdas and it's all serverless. Could be any one of those. Yeah. Trying to see if there's any ones that I definitely want to dig in here, but I want to skip over this because again, we've got the other video and I want to get closer into doing the actual testing, what most people would call hacking, injection testing, logic testing and everything, because that's what a lot of people are saying they want to see. So, but I definitely recommend going through a lot of these questions as well. It's a great way to learn about the application to make sure that you're not missing anything as you're testing. The one that I would say you definitely want to use every time is right here, especially because we're going to look at IDORs, indirect object references. What objects are being used? What objects do we want to access? Especially if this is a JavaScript-based application, I can tell you that I'm going to make the assumption that they're using a Mongo database on the back end, a non-relational database, which means that it's serving up individual documents in the form of JSON objects. So you're going to have like a user object. If we come back over to, in fact, I'll just go ahead and put that. I'm going to make some assumptions here, but this is what I believe what objects are being used, right? And let's do this. Let's make this a little bit cleaner. Let's come over here. Actually, I like that to be on the right. Let's get Starbucks over here. And then let's just click on this. So we know we have a card management here. So I'm telling you, we almost definitely have a gift card object on the back end. And that's going to have what's the number of the gift card, what's the value that's on the gift card, what user is tied to it, everything. So if we know all the different key value pairs that are in that gift card object, we can start to try and do our IDORs and everything else. What else do we have? Rewards. Possible that there's a reward object that's linked to the user. I'm thinking much more likely that that is an extension of the reward. So it's a nested object within the user object. Again, I'm making assumptions here. I'm making assumptions based on my experience, but I think that's probably what happened. History is not going to have anything, personal info, same type of thing. Payment methods. This is almost certainly going to be a separate object. Oh, did it sound me out again? Does it have a very, I can't tell if it has a really low timeout or if it's what burp is doing is causing it to time out. Or is somebody else, I bet you somebody else watching this and signing in and validating my thing because they know my password. If you're doing that, screw it. I ain't gonna get angry about that. All right, so yeah, we looked at the payment card there. I think this is going to be a completely separate type of object. You're probably going to have something within the user object that's going to tell it what payment methods it has. But I think the actual payment card is going to be a completely separate object. The reason for that is what I was mentioning earlier with PCI DSS. One of the main requirements of PCI DSS is that it has to be, all of the payment card data has to be isolated. So it would be much more difficult. And by the way, it's what we're always trying to do. I'm always trying to figure out what's the easiest way for the developers to solve problems. It would be much easier for them to create two separate objects and then just store them and process them completely separately, as opposed to having that user object with an attached payment card that actually has the card number and everything. But this is the object that I'm probably gonna focus on right here. I mean, the user object and everything is great if we can log in, but man, if I can get somebody else's payment card information, credit card information, that is an impact on the compliance side, an impact on the financial side, an impact on the reputation side. It's a huge, huge impact, and that's where you can start to get a lot of money for vulnerabilities like this. So this is why it's so important to identify what the objects are, because you've got to know what you're targeting, right? You got to know what you're trying to get. If you're just going in and throwing payloads into an application and waiting to see if it has any malformed or any unexpected functionality, you're not going to be able to communicate the impact to the customer, and so you're not going to get as many bounties. It's so important to be able to link the vulnerabilities that you're finding back to their customer data. That is what Starbucks cares about. Starbucks, their application security team is dug into protecting one thing. It's their crown jewels, is their application data. Of course, they care about data within Starbucks, but that is supplementary. If anything happens within that, that's more controllable. It's always going to be more of an impact when you have customer data being accessed. When you're doing bug bounties, that's your number one target. Be laser focused on customer data. Be laser focused on the most valuable part of that customer data. Put yourself in the shoes of that customer if you haven't used that app before. What would be the worst case scenario? What's your nightmare scenario if you were a user on this app, right? If I'm a user on Starbucks, what's my nightmare scenario? Is it that somebody can log into this app? Well, probably not if maybe they can come in and use my gift cards or stuff, but that's not, if somebody gets my gift card object, right? They can steal a little bit of money from me, but it's not that much. If somebody gets my credit card information, now I've got a whole thing. Now I got to call my credit card company. This is, multiple days of work that I've got to do, taking time out of my day, and I'm going to be furious at Starbucks. And if they can get one, you better believe they're going to get every single one that they can possibly can before you can get it. So anything like this is going to be, I'm laser focused on any mechanism like this when I'm looking for impact, looking for money. It's very different than something like if I'm just looking to have fun and do the type of testing I want to do, which I certainly do. I probably focus more on these gift cards just because you have like race conditions and logic and all that kind of fun stuff there. Let's see. I think that's probably the main objects that I'm going to focus in on for right now. We'll keep an eye out. Obviously, there's a ton more. There's going to be tons and tons of object in here. What does this add money? Yeah, this is another place that I would certainly be testing for injection. You're not. I wouldn't worry about cross-site scripting. I wouldn't worry about SQL injection. I would definitely test no SQL injection, which, by the way, cannot type. Call you back later. Portswigger recently released a ton of great labs and information for NoSQL injection. So I know this is something that, if you're not working every day with a NoSQL injection database and maybe something that's a little foreign, if you think you can take any principles and methodologies from SQL injection and carry it over to NoSQL injection, that's unfortunately not unfortunately. It's just not the case, right? Completely different syntax. From an attacker's perspective, a NoSQL injection is completely different from a SQL injection. The syntax is different. The protecting against it from the developer side is completely different. Weaponizing it is kind of the same, but a Mongo database works a lot different. Some Mongo databases can be configured to have JavaScript functions execute. So one of the things I'm trying to do if I'm looking for NoSQL injection is to see if they have that or not, because that would obviously be a lot more impact. But anyway, if you want to learn more about NoSQL injection, come down here. They've got a bunch of labs and stuff. If you haven't seen Portswigger Academy and you're getting into bug bounties, this is the first place I would go. They've got a ton of great information, talk about the impact and everything too. So, yeah. All right. I forget how I got over there, but that's okay. All right. So we'll move away from that. I don't want to go through all of the individual questions. We'll come back and check on our crawl here. If you look down here, it has, it's very, very small, but the endpoints go product and then a number and then single. So there's multiple different products that look like they're tied to a unique identifier that's over here. I'll have to zoom this in if I can get a camera or a recording of this, but that's a possibility for an IDOR. It's also a possibility for any injection. That's a path parameter that's going to be taken out. It's going to be used in the server side code. So that's definitely something to look at. That's a great attack vector there. Magic, how long have you been doing bug bounties? Probably 5 or 6 years, but it's, I did it full time for a year, but I've also been doing independent consulting for about 7 years. So it hasn't been constant. I use it as a way to learn, new techniques and everything and make money at the same time. It's never been my primary source of income. Even when I'm doing it full time, I had independent consulting and everything where I was doing it on top of it. But yeah, I started, so the second bug crowd event that they had, they do, I think they still do it, but gosh, I can't remember now. I think it was 2018 when this was. Anyway, they had like their bug crowd thing and Stoke came and did a talk, and they were just kind of introducing what bug bounties were, at least for me. I'd never heard of them before. I was working at Rapid7 at the time, so obviously I was in the security space and everything. But I got into it from there, and when I heard that companies would allow you to try and hack their public websites and they would pay you if you found something, just for me, it was something I was looking for. I didn't know I was looking for. You know what I mean? It just kind of hit everything on the types of things that I love. It's completely asynchronous. Anybody from anywhere that has access to a laptop and just knowledge and skills can go and make money doing that, make a living. And also there's a competition aspect to it, right? Because I love that so much. I'm a very, very competitive person, but I love the idea that you have an entire security team working to protect this application, and I can still get around it, and I can still find ways to exploit it, and I can still get around that. I love that from a competitive perspective, being the attacker. I also love it because I run a blue team, and I run a bug bounty program, and I do the same thing. So also there's competitive aspect of like, hey, we're pretty locked down, although we got a very early program, so I don't want to talk too much smack. But there's definitely, I always want to make sure and set expectations with the money for bug bounties. Like I mentioned before, it's an Easter egg hunt, right? So your money comes in bursts. You'll find something that's insecure and you'll get a big lump of money. And then I'll be honest with you, if you're doing it full time, it's your only source of income, the panic starts to set in again. And you're like, oh gosh, am I going to find the next bug, et cetera. So you kind of get good at like hoarding your acorns, making sure you've got enough food for the winter. That's why I do independent consulting as well, right? So that's a much more consistent form of income. Bug bounties are a great side hustle. They're a great way if you're looking to get into security, especially application security. So I always recommend anybody, like you said, Magic, you're working as a developer. That's perfect. If you're working as a developer and you want to get into bug bounties and maybe even eventually move over to the security team, you know, you can spend your free time. You can watch there's tons of free stuff out there. Obviously my stuff, but Jay Haddix, Tom Nom Nom, Insider PhD, Hack Luke. I've mentioned Stoke a few times. I'm going to forget a ton of people and I'm going to get yelled at later. But there's so much free information there. You don't have to spend any money to get into this. You don't even really have to get a pro version of Burp. I usually recommend just going in and earning enough money to buy it. But yeah, you can do that in your free time. You can make money. You can get paid to do it. And then eventually you build up those skills. You're building up your resume as well. I love people that apply to my security team and they show me, all their stuff on HackerOne and I can go through and look through their activity. That's so much more valuable to me than like a college degree or something because it's functional. You prove that you can do the job. What's up, Storm? What's up? Good to see you again. Yeah, so Magic, I would say be persistent. It's really about that. It's not about working 12 hours every day. It's about working 12 hours for 3 or 4 days, whatever, in short sprints. It's about doing 1 or 2 hours every day if you're consistent with it. I recommend as well coming into the Hacktivity. I know I've mentioned this before. HackerOne has the publicly disclosed board of vulnerabilities. And this is, by the way, a video series that I'm going to be doing here pretty soon. The best way that I think to get into bug bounties is to read valid bug bounty reports, right? So I try to do 1 or 2 of these a day in the morning. I'll get my coffee, kind of get the day started, and I'll go and just see what's on the top here, what new ones are out, right? You read through the summary, read through the steps to reproduce, everything like that. And you're going to be taking notes too, which is actually in here. Which one? Oh, it's in the signs as well, isn't it? It's on the very bottom of this page here. There we go. So this is the template that I use. Let's make this a little smaller here. So I'll go through each of these. I'll find one that looks interesting that can go away. And, I'll come and copy. Here's the report. Hey, oh my gosh, thank you for the subscription. Wow, I think it's the first time anybody subscribed live on here on the thing. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Gosh, I'm so happy people are getting value from this. Damn, this is going to be a good day. Thank you so much. I'm pumped up. So yeah, you come in and put the report, right? I'll put the title and everything. And I have tons and tons and tons of these over the years that I've pointed through. But right, program, app function. This is where it starts to get important. That can go away. So look through and find out what part of the application did this attacker exploit, right? And now you're starting to put together. This looks like a file upload, right? So now that's what I'm going to start thinking. I'm starting to get an idea of these signs and these pointers to these vulnerabilities. So this person used this mechanism within a file upload. What technology stack it is? Why was it vulnerable, right? That's always the most important thing. What aspect of CRUD, so create, read, update, and delete, what aspect of CRUD did it use? And then what was the actual function? So most likely with a file upload, this is going to be a create function because you're creating a file on the other server. That's what this does. It takes the data that you send in an HTTP request and it repurposes it on a file and stores it somewhere. So whether it's an S3 bucket, locally on the server, wherever, that's what it's doing. So we're doing create, and the exploited function is going to be this file upload mechanism here, right? Not actually going and look at it and look, is it using a specific library, a specific NPM package, anything like that I can surmise to get a better idea of how to recognize it in the future. And then takeaways, this is really important. I try to find 3 different takeaways that I can use to, just lessons to learn from this, right? So this one let's say there was a client-side library, let's say an NPM package that was associated with this vulnerability. So one of my takeaways would be, when I see the library, that's all messed up, isn't it? When I see the library, check for file upload, right? Or check the version or something, whatever it is. But I'm making notes to myself so that these mental notes hopefully pop back up while I'm testing. Because when you're in the middle of testing, right, you go down rabbit holes and everything. So you just want to have these little subconscious things sitting in the back of your head that you can hopefully use there. But yeah, I definitely recommend Magic. This is if you do this every day, I would say start out, do this, do about an hour of learning, spend about 3 or 4 hours actually testing. And then at the end of the day, spend a couple hours, if you can do this full time, right? I know you're working right now, so you can't. Oh, my chat is paused. Oh, there. Okay, just make sure I'm not missing anything. Anyway, if you can do it full time, otherwise split it up to whatever works for you. But if you can check activity, you can do some testing, you can do some studying, and you can also end the day by building a bit of automation that will automate something that was challenging and manual when you were doing that testing. That's how I recommend getting into it. That was how I got started. I did that for an entire year, literally every day for an entire year. Well, that's, obviously I took a couple days off, but much more than the typical 5-day work week. And it will come. It will come. You've already learned how to become a developer, so you're probably familiar with this concept as well, right? When you're learning to code, it doesn't go like in an arc up, right? There's plateaus, like you're going, and then you have this light bulb moment, and there's like a jump, and now all of a sudden you've got this additional knowledge, and you take these big leaps. You'll have the same type of feeling here when you're doing the bug bounties. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be crazy. Just going through the process of automating something that is challenging and manual. First of all, you're learning how to interact with that application using an automated tool, which means you have to really deeply understand that application and the code and everything that works with it. So it's not about big major things. It's about a very large number of small things that you do day after day after day after day. The people that I've seen become successful in bug bounties, first of all, they do that. They are consistent and they do small things every day. The second is that they are truly passionate about it. They enjoy it. So try to find some type of testing that you're doing that's also fun. If you're not having fun, then when you hit those dry spells or when you can't find those patches of Easter eggs, it's going to be much easier because you're having fun. And then hopefully you're learning as well. That's what I try to dial in on. Let's make sure that at least I'm learning something and I can take this, apply it to something else. So if you're a developer, maybe try and focus on applications that have the same code base that you do. Maybe you can go in and look at specific repositories. In HackerOne, you can go into the directory. Gosh, I can't think. And you can sort these by what their options are. So maybe for you, since you're familiar with code bases, a great thing would be to just come through and look at all these different programs that allow you to test the code themselves. So I'll just pick a random one there. Oh, the scope is probably moved, right? And they should have a GitHub page. Yeah, see, they have several different GitHub pages. So I would go in and look at these. Since you're a developer, find one that has the same code base that you're familiar with. You probably have seen some vulnerabilities and stuff that you fixed in your own code. So this can be a great place to start, and then you can start getting your wading into the rest of the things as well. But consistent testing, consistent studying, small amounts every day those are the people that I see be successful. All right, man, our crawl is still going here, isn't it? Okay. Let's see, how long we've been going? Man, we're going for an hour and a half. It's crazy how fast time goes when I'm doing this here. I'm starting to feel it a little bit though. So let's do this. I want to look into this application. I think I've given enough information to enable everybody that's watching this to go in and be able to do enumeration, to find those endpoints. So let's move on from that and let's start to look at parameters, right? We've got a good list of endpoints. So now I want to look at all of these different endpoints that have parameters. And parameters are, if it's a post request, that's going to be the data that's included in the body. So these key value pairs. If it is a GET request, they're going to be GET parameters that are up here. I'm also going to be looking at those path parameters. So I think we saw those earlier in a menu option, right? Oh, this is a little different. This is actually a GET parameter. So all of these are our main attack vectors. When you're looking at an application, your parameter is going to be your main attack vector. Now that doesn't mean it's the only one, right? You have your host header, that's an attack vector. Every one of these endpoints is an attack vector. Any of your cookies can be, the data stored within cookies can be in an attack vector. So if we see something, let's find it here. We see something like this where it's URL encoded. Send this to the repeater. any of these cookies that we see that we believe has data in it, right? So come over here. These are now an attack vector. So we've got our value and got our short. I don't know what this does, this S check here, but it's an interesting thing. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh shoot, I've got somebody at the door here. Okay, let me hit pause here for just 1 second. I will be right back. All right, I'm back. Make sure everything's still working. Oh man. Sorry, somebody at the door had to run downstairs real quick, so now I'm gonna show how out of shape I am by being out of breath. But oh, your first bug was an IDOR. Yeah, Magic, that's a great one to focus on for your first one. There's a lot of people that's one of their first bugs. I always recommend Insider PhD for people that are just getting started. She has a great videos on finding IDORs and how you can use that to get started. Man, oh man. All right, well, that's taken care of. I was saying that there's data stored in here, right? So what I would do is write a Python script or something like that. You can also automate it through here with Intruder to be able to convert this from URL, and then you can use these as attack vectors as well. So obviously do the encoding or decode it, although with this it'd be pretty easy to just kind of select this as your target there. So you can download a PFD or a PDF. Gosh, I can't read. Download a PDF available. Oh yeah, what was in the PDF? I mean, you may not be able to tell, but oh, I see. Okay, so it was an IDOR that you could download PDFs, but you would have had to find the unique identifier, which I'm guessing was something. Oh, let me come back over to the main screen here. I'm guessing it was something that was relatively complex, like this one here. Oh yeah, company. Yeah, internal company info. Yep, and that's another reason that it was probably low. Again, that customer data is always going to be more important to the company. Well, in almost all cases, because the customers, that's what can hurt their reputation. That's very cool. The first one is always great. The first one that you get is always because it lets you know that it's possible, and it kind of gives you an idea. Because bug bounties feel like you're wading into this big ocean. You don't really know where to go, and you're just, it's just a very kind of imposter syndrome type. Everybody feels like I still have imposter syndrome all the time. So getting that first bug lets you know that it's possible. You start to build up that database in the back of your mind of here's the types of things I can look for, and here's how they correspond to a vulnerability. So that's awesome. Yep, that first one's usually the hardest. So you're past the hard part, Magic. Okay, my breath is coming back to me. Let's see, we're an hour 34 in. Probably shoot for about an hour 45 to possibly up to 2 hours here, and then probably call it a day. But yeah, so I wanted to look at, actually, hold on. Before we start looking at parameters, one last thing I want to show is intruder, because we've done, actually, no, there's two. Let's do this. Two more ways for enumeration that I want to show. So instead of doing the crawl, let's do an automated enumeration of the app.starbucks here. So I'm going to click on the root directory, right click, go to engagement tools, and I'm going to go to discover content. I've shown this before, but it was on one of the older videos. This is essentially FFUF or Dirbuster, finding hidden endpoints through an automated testing built into Burp. We can come in here to the config. What I do, it's already got a bunch of built-in word lists. I do 2 custom lists, and if it's a JavaScript app like this, I'm going to do, for the first one, raft large files, and then for the directory list, we will do raft medium directories right there. And that's really it. We can come down here. So I'll drop this down to, let's say, one discovery thread. The discovery thread is going to be what's throwing the different endpoints to see what the response is. And the spider threads are going to be the crawler that works as this. So this is going to hammer a bunch of endpoints looking for valid responses. It's also going to crawl through. It's just a great automated way to start and find endpoints. And you'll see if we do this here, we should see stuff start to pop up relatively quickly. So when you're doing enumeration, you're also going to want to have that running in the background. I typically start that after our crawl is completed. And then the third piece I want to include before we move on to parameters is using intruder to test these, right? So now we've got these individual endpoints. Let's send this to intruder. And intruder allows us to send several different requests very quickly, but it's much more controlled. We can add payloads, and then we can use word lists and all these different functions to manipulate this. So if we want to look for endpoints under this BFF route here, I'm going to hit add there, and this creates our payload, right? So this is, this is what's going to be changed as we're sending each one of these requests. And we'll come over here, we'll just do a simple list, but you can see there's a ton of different types of things that you can do. And we're going to load up. So we're in sec lists here. Go to sec lists, and we'll go discovery, we'll go web content, and this is where you can get those same word lists as before. So as opposed to doing the discover content, you can also come in. Now don't do the larger raft ones in here because it's going to crash Burp. Burp already takes up a lot of memory, and we try to load a huge word list like that, it's going to be pretty challenging. But I would do like a small, let's say just a small directories right there. You can see it's going to load all these in. We can add payload processing. So if we wanted to have this, say, be encoded or decoded and add additional values in there, we can do that. You can do payload processing. So if you want to URL encode certain characters, that's what I was talking about before. You can just set that in there so it'll automatically URL encode it. Or you can do payload processing to change that. So that's where if you did have encoded data, like let's say you were doing fuzzing on a value within a base 64 encoded thing. What was the thing we found earlier? Is it still there? Yeah, this right here. If you want to do fuzzing on this endpoint here, right, or this value here within it, all you would need to do, come over to intruder. You would add a payload processor that would decode base 64, right? Then it's going to do whatever it's going to do. It's going to add it, and then you can re-encode it. So you can add several different rules in there. It's just going to follow an order of operations going down to do that. So when you're fuzzing for endpoints, or when you're looking for new endpoints in the application itself, step 1, click through the application. Step 2, you can start a scan or a very simple crawl, preferably an authenticated crawl coming from Burp. Step 3 in Burp, you do the discover content, right? Goes down there. Step 4, intruder. That's where you get much more targeted as opposed to just kind of spraying everything across. Those are the main ways that you can, obviously there's a ton of other tools, but those are the main techniques themselves that you can use to go and find other endpoints, aside from things like scraping, open source, if you have anything on GitHub, anything on Google, etc. So now let's go back, and now we're going to look at parameters. So again, we don't see any get parameters here, even though it's a post request. Some post requests can have get parameters, and those are absolutely attack vectors, right? If there's a parameter, that value is almost definitely being taken out by the server-side code and being processed or manipulated in some way. So that's our ability to deliver a payload to the server-side code. Like I said, any one of these cookies is going to be one, any of the values of any of these headers, right? User agents. You'd be surprised how many applications, and especially how many infrastructure like load balancers and things will use user agents and process them. So you can possibly get injection techniques there, or you can bypass the logic. Maybe they have something set up so that a curl command, this would be terrible security, but I'm just kind of thinking things on top of my head. Maybe they have, if a curl user agent is included, maybe as part of the debug, somebody just got it set up to where that would bypass an authentication mechanism or something, and that never got removed after that testing was done. There can potentially be a logic to do with that. The content type here, right? We can change the content type. This is expecting JSON. Is it okay with URL, right, or form data? Does it accept it? If it is, are there the same restrictions and the same controls on that as opposed to this JSON data? I don't know. Yeah, so all of these headers can be, and then obviously our main parameters are here. Now the parameters that, or the payloads here, typically going to be in these strings, in these things here. But the keys themselves are also, they're also attack vectors, especially when it comes to NoSQL injection. If this NoSQL injection, typically you're going to do something like not equals to payload, and then let's say this was being used to make a query to the Mongo database. Well, now what's being passed to that, this is actually not right, this would be an object, but you get the point. We're checking to see if it's not equal to payload, and if it's not, then hopefully it will return more data, right? So anything in this request can be an attack vector. And one of the reasons I really wanted to make sure to go through this today on the stream is I talked to a lot of engineers who only, or researchers when they're getting started as well, that only really think about the parameters as attack vectors, and they don't think about all the other ways that this code is being used on the server side and how an attacker can inject into that. So always good to make sure that you're hitting all of these different points, all these different attack vectors when you're testing. Another thing that you can do is you can use a really great tool in here called Param Miner. And Param Miner is going to try to find hidden parameters. So for this here, let's take, if we just want to find hidden parameters within, can I get rid of that? Yes, I can. And that as well. I'm going to try and get it back to the original thing. Okay. Param Miner is going to go through and is going to try and guess. You can see right there, get parameters, JSON parameters, guess cookie parameters that are in there. So hidden cookies, hidden headers, all that type of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and hit guess everything, and we'll click through those, and that's going to start the scanners on the back end. Now, if we come into the Logger++, we should be able to catch some requests and see what's happening here. Possibly. They're going to go pretty quick. Anyway, what it's going to do, let's just come back to here because that's going to get messy to look at. People are going to get headaches. What that does, what Param Miner does is, I want to get that pulled back up. It takes chunks of possible get parameters or JSON parameters or headers or cookies, and it sends it with the request. So if it's checking for additional post parameters here, what it's going to do is it's going to do this, and it's going to add in, obviously they're going to be specific key value pairs that are known to have some type of an effect on certain technology, but there's going to be big chunks of these. This works in the same way that Argent works. So if you're more familiar with Python, this is a really great tool that you can use to get an understanding of how it works, or you can also use this as an alternative to it. Goes in and essentially sends them in chunks. So, but it's sending all those parameters in chunks. So let's say there's this huge value with hundreds of different key value pairs. If it gets a different response, in the same way I was talking about a DAS scanner, throwing a bunch of payloads and waiting for a different response from the baseline, if it gets a difference in response, that's going to tell the scanner, well, one of these parameters is probably having an impact. So it's going to set those into a separate list. Every one of those in the list of chunks is now going to be individually sent through with a unique identifier as well. And if they get the same thing again, where they send one parameter and that returns an unexpected input compared to the baseline and all the other ones we're sending from the second round, now we found something that could have an impact on the backside. So it's going to do that for all of these parameters here. It's going to do it for all the headers. It's going to do it for cookies. And then if it finds anything, you'll actually see it in here. Oh, interesting. It claims that there's a cache poisoning. I'm not going to test that out because I don't want to find anything, but that's a pointer as well. So I'm certainly going to come in and test this for cache poisoning there, and I would recommend doing that. The circle not being filled in, that means that it is tentative, right? The confidence is not firm, it's tentative. That means that it's just seen something, a variation in a response, and it thinks that it could possibly find something. So cache poisoning, if you go in and find that that's valid, you know, make sure you come over here to Portswigger, but instead of this, go to web cache poisoning, right? If you find that, you want to go test it, come on here, learn it, go and test it. Awesome. But more importantly for the parameters, right, we found a couple hidden parameters, okay? So we've got X correlation ID. When we send a 1, so we send the first request, here's our baseline request. It does not have that header on it there. And we get the typical 200 response. The second request, you can see, first of all, we put a cache buster on it just to make sure that we're not hitting the cache. And then we have this additional X correlation ID with this random value here. So in this response, we have a 200, but we don't see, what is the variation? This value is being, all of the get parameters being reflected. Is that what's happening? Let's send, hold on, send this to the repeater. So this has that header there and along with this. So am I understanding correctly that when you do this, this get parameter is being reflected? No? Oh, it's adding an additional cookie. So that somehow invalidates, oh, this is a different one I'm looking at. Darn it. I don't know what that one's doing there. This is also the lower impact of the two, so maybe it just didn't see anything, but it's telling me that this string is in there somewhere. That's what this means here, the 1 and the 0. So it's saying that this string was found when we sent this header, but it was not found when we sent the header with additional garbage on the end of it, which changes it. The fact that this is informational, I don't know what it's finding or why. I'm thinking this is a false positive. I'm thinking maybe we sent this value somewhere else as a test and it's getting returned for some reason, but who knows? Maybe that header, maybe it allows additional information to be returned. So that's definitely something I'm going to test for. Let's come to the more impactful. This is good. TE, that is the transfer encoding. It is used for sending several HTTP requests in a single request. That's where HTTP request smuggling comes from. If the front end, the load balancers or something like that, if front end servers are configured differently than the back end servers, so that one of them accepts chunked request and the other one don't, then you can get some inconsistencies between that. And you can possibly do some HTTP request smuggling. That's right. Well, this is Gareth, but James Kettle from Portswigger, his research on that. You know, if we want to test for that, in fact, I definitely would. What I'm going to do, and I'm not going to do this on the stream because I don't know what's going to come back, and this is actually something that can automatically find some pretty great stuff. Hey, thank you very much for following. Natty Ness, hey, thank you for following so much. Yeah, we can. I don't think I have this installed. I don't. Okay, this is a good opportunity for me to install it too. Oh, it is. It's just not none. So HTTP request smuggler, right? If you come in, if you don't have it, just come into the B app here. You'll scroll down to request smuggler. You'll just hit install. It's already in there, but then it'll be an option down here when you go to extensions. Okay, so just like our param miner, where are we at? What's it doing? UI gets a little funky sometimes. Okay, so we've got our HTTP request smuggling scans. Well, these are going to send us several different probes to try and see if it can find inconsistencies between the front end and the back end there. So I would go to launch all scans. God, why do you keep going away? There. Okay, launch all scans right there at the bottom. That's the button I would click. Wait to see if anything else pops up here. But yeah, that transfer encoding is super interesting. And you see here as well, okay, we send a request and we get a response. That's a typical request. When we include this transfer encoding, we don't get a response back. See that? Request 1, response 1, request 2, nothing, request 3, response 3. That's a variation. When you're talking about not getting a response back and you're also looking at transfer encoding and things like that, we very well could have some type of HTTP request bug in there. Who knows? But that is an attack vector that I would certainly look at for this application because of that finding. Proxy connection, this could be a configuration. This could be a false positive because of the transfer encoding. It could be a false positive because maybe, nothing's going to get hit. No, that wouldn't make any sense. No, this should have the same impact. Let's see if we can recreate that behavior. So this has the proxy connection header attached to it, which again, anytime you see anything like this, come in and do some research with it, right? See what it does. The proxy connection header is sent instead of the connection header when the client knows that it's going through a proxy. Why would it not send a response? Let's make sure that that's true. Let's make sure it wasn't a bug. So if I send this, I do not get a response. It just kind of errors out. So what is it looking for? This is being processed somehow. This is a great attack vector. No, I would certainly come in here. I would right click on this after I highlight, come over here and not hit do an active scan on this, because this is something that's having some type of an impact. Do an active scan is just going to automatically do like a base set of scans very quickly. That's what I typically do when I'm dialing into specific endpoints there. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. How are we doing on time here? I think we're doing okay. Okay, yeah. So Param Miner's it runs for a long time as well. So it's probably going to continue finding some stuff. But we'll wait and see. One other thing that I want to talk about. Let's see. Here we have a huge object here. Let's come back over here to this. Let's get back into the app. Where is it? I want to go to my profile, personal info. We're going to do some testing on this. Let me get back my throwaway password there. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and just submit this. Sure, why not? Yes, my OCD is to the point where I would have to do that. Apartment, let's just say 1, 2, 3, why not? Go away. City, I don't know, Houston, why not? Texas, I don't know, Houston, Connecticut. I don't know, some random numbers there. I don't know how much this has to be accurate. I was born August 24th, why not? I didn't want to do that, darn it. Is it going to get rid of everything? Oh, you son of a gun. You son of a gun. Okay. Sure. Too many. Month, day. Okay. Let's come over here. Get you over here. Proxy. Intercept, save. Oh, that's a beacon. Not what we're looking for here. Here we go. Does it send it in blocks? Okay, so it's doing a post request first of all. App.starbucks, BFF, proxy. Okay, so I wonder, does this have the proxy connection? It seems like it knows that I'm coming through a proxy, or at least maybe that's just a different naming convention. But update birthday. So it looks like it's updating the birthday first. So that's one mechanism. So they have it all spread out. Very interesting. That's actually pretty clever. This is also kind of going back to what we were looking at before with the objects. I'm now thinking, are these all individual objects? Do they have microservices at the endpoint? So there's just one, or on the server side, so they just have one endpoint that gets a request and modifies the birthday. These are all individual documents and individual objects in the back. this would completely change how I would look at this question. I would come back and probably include each one of these as an individual object and make the assumption that I'm looking at each of these. I'm sending each one of these to the repeater as well as they're coming through. These beacons are interesting. I don't know if you can tell with the data, but it starts with EY, lowercase Echo Yankee. That tells me that it is some type of data store because that is the base 64 encoding for a curly bracket and open curly bracket. Most likely a JOT, but I didn't look long enough to see if there was a delimiter or anything in there. Just Mozilla, something going to Firestore, so maybe other things are included in Firestore there. That looks like about it. So we have two of these here. What I was looking to see, and I didn't see what the response was. This looks more like a GraphQL. So maybe we're not looking at, and I don't know that for sure, but maybe we're not looking at MongoDB. Maybe we're looking at GraphQL to get in there. I did see Firebase as well, so they could be using Firebase for all. There's Firebase is a Google data store that is a third party. It takes a lot of that offloads a lot of that responsibility off them. But what I was hoping to see is, let's just kind of recreate it here. So if we come to this, send this, what comes back? Okay, this is much more what I was looking at. So if I send an update request, that's what this is. When we're talking about the versions of CRUD, create, read, update, and delete, this is almost certainly going to be an update mechanism, which means the server-side code is going to be accepting these key value pairs. It's going to be taking each one of these user-controlled input and is going to be updating the values in the database. So what I will do is I'll send this, and a common mistake that developers do when they have this type of code pattern is they will return the entire object even though they aren't sending and updating the entire object. So we may get this back and have several additional key value pairs that were not included in the additional request. If you see that, so let's say the postal code was not included, right? So let's just say for the sake of argument, we sent this request in and it came with this request back. That tells me there's a postal code key value pair in that document that we can possibly impact, but they didn't expect for that to come in the request, at least not from the way that we sent it. So what I would do is I would come in and copy this and I'd add it in manually, and then I'd have this be a new attack vector. And what you can find a lot is you can actually update those values, because what they're doing on the server side for JavaScript applications like this is they're using a library called Mongoose to communicate with MongoDB, again, assuming this is MongoDB. So they are taking the entire object that's being sent, and it's just being passed to find one and update, essentially, is one of the names of the method. So it just takes that and updates every single one. It's the simplest way for the developers to do that, and that's why we see it a lot. I see these all the time, and again, this is a great entry-level bug, insufficient sanitization. You got to find impact, right? So maybe it's not postal code, but maybe it's email. This is something, this is a real bug that I've found multiple times. Let's say it's an email value, but it's you logged in through OAuth. So you clicked on the login and you went over to Google and you logged into Google and came back and you were logged into this app. That email that's associated with this, if you're using OAuth, it needs to be static. You can't change that at all within the application. So, or you shouldn't be able to, because obviously that's what's tied to your account in most implementations of OAuth. So if you can potentially, you'll probably have something saying you can't change your email, but you can potentially add a key value pair in here to circumvent that. Found that multiple times in an application. Profile picture is another one. That I see every once in a while. You know, in your user object here, there may be an additional key value pair over here that's like avatar or picture, profile picture, something like that, and it has a URL for the value, and that's where it's pulling the image for your avatar, right, or an S3 bucket or anything. Can you control that? And you control it. It's not a big deal to be able to load a different picture outside of where it's loading, but what you're actually doing with that, if you can change that URL to something external or something to have any type of impact, you can force every single user that looks at your profile picture in the application to make a GET request they did not intend to make. And that's because the DOM is loading an image tag with the source. When the DOM loads an image tag with the source, what it does is it makes a GET request to try to pull that image data and then load that on the DOM. So that's another way that you can take something like this and be able to you change profile picture to, let's say, the logout button as a way to just be super annoying. So now every person who looks at your profile picture is automatically logged out. That's a denial of service type of thing. That's how you can build impact with that. So, okay. I think that's a good place to stop. I'll ask first of all, are there any other questions, anything somebody was hoping to see that they didn't get a chance to see today? Anything at all that I can dig into before I call it a day? And I'll give it a few minutes here. I'm going to go ahead and see if there's anything else interesting while I wait. See if anything stands out to me as well. I would definitely come check this out. Come run a quick scan on that and see how it likes that. Nothing else really popping up. Okay, great. Well, oh yeah, no, I totally get that magic. No, hey, this will be on YouTube as well, so if you want to go back and watch it. But no, I just appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate everything. I appreciate you know, again, submitting everything, and gosh, I'm still blown away by that. But awesome. Okay, well, I'm officially gassed again. I think you probably hear it in my voice. Oh, Nadia, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so glad. Like I said, all these will be on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel. For anybody that doesn't know, it's same thing, Arson Live over there. I'll send them there. So this will be up probably, if not later today, then first thing tomorrow morning. Yeah. If you have any additional questions and comments and stuff, let me know. If there's anything that I can do, yeah, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to call it. Thank you so much. Yeah, see you all soon. Hope to see everybody back again. Thanks again. Cheers.